It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Hello, model citizens. Welcome to Humanity Junction. Tonight, we're going to talk about whether I should tear out the layout that is barely started to start over and build a completely new layout. So if you have any comments or suggestions or whatever, please come back at the end of the stream, make your comments below the video, because the chance of me finding all the comments during this stream might be a little hard, because I got a lot I want to get through to kind of show everything that I am going to plan on doing. So that's the plan. The other plan is, what I'm going to try and do is, if you hit the thumbs up, it should come up in this corner right up here, the little person with the little thing. I think I've got it set up that that's only going to happen now while the logo screen is up, and it's not going to happen during the rest of the stream. If I've done it right, if I've done everything right, that's going to happen. DB Tech David wants to know, do I have some new ideas? We'll have to see. I think that's the plan. For this video, is to see whether I've actually got any good ideas, or if I should just keep working on what I got and stop like changing things. The other thing I want to mention, my email list, if you have not signed up for it, it's where I kind of post a reminder for this live stream. It's where I post some things that are coming up in my world, changes that are happening. If YouTube disappears, it's a good way to find me. So if people would subscribe to my email list, I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to play a little game to grow it to at least 100, and I know about 300 people at least click on the video. I don't know if they watch it, but at least 300 people click on the video. So hopefully maybe I can get the email list up just a little bit. And this week you're going to have a little bit more of me because I will be hosting Sidetrack Sunday, and I'll be making a big announcement that if you are on my email list, you already know what the announcement is. If you aren't on my email list, you're going to have to show up to find out. So, last chance to hit the like button to get it to pop up right there, because I am going to move on to the conversation, which is also the poll question. So there is a poll question. Should I tear out the layout that I barely got started and build a completely new layout? So far, 65% say start over. 35 say finish the current one. If you haven't decided yet, wait. You have time to answer it. But I will, I'll show you why. I'll show you why. I'll show you where we're at, what's happening. So if you saw the thumbnail, and I know I'm kind of blocking, I'm blocking a little part of it, but if you saw the thumbnail, this was the thumbnail. And this is where I'm thinking about going. The pictures that are... My little Alexa thing is responding to me. The pictures are just sort of representative areas, and I'm going to go through all those representative areas, kind of show you my thought process, and kind of explain why I think this might be the better place to go. But we probably start where I'm at right now. This is the current layout. Joe says, just finished something. I finished laying the track. The track is laid. I could run trains on it. But as I'm running trains, I'm finding all of these things that are missing, or things that aren't quite right. And I've also learned a lot from other people's layouts, and that's partly why this has even come into my head, is that every time I go to an op session, I learn some little reason or whatever as to why they've done what they've done, and I start thinking, I missed the boat. So this is the current layout. I am currently standing at the desk, so you kind of have to imagine yourself upside down, but I'm standing at the desk. This layout has staging, bottom left corner. It's got a couple industries up in, well, so staging is right here next to me. Got an industrial area. I've got a town up in this area. There is a main yard in the middle of the layout. I've got a car float, and I've got this other industry area that is a time saver. And Andy Step is saying, at least save the time saver because. So one of the big mistakes that I think I made is that a time saver is a great switching puzzle. I don't think that a time saver makes a great industrial area on a layout. So that alone, which is, you know, a 4 feet section of a 20-foot layout, is a problem. And yes, I did say it was for us, and there's no reason really for me to tear that out. I can just sort of, you know, move it or take it to shows or something with me. But yeah, that's one of the problems. The other problem is the yard doesn't really serve the purpose that I want to serve. The car float's a little awkward to operate. Even the 3 industry is awkward to operate because it's got a switchback in it, right? So to, if we look at this a little closer, to get to, I'm messing it all up. To get to this orange track here, you have to pull into here and then back up into it. And I do get that that is somewhat prototypical, but it doesn't operate really well. And I'm also finding out 6 staging tracks. So this is an 8-inch section of the layout. So I can only fit 6 staging tracks on it. I've got big dreams. I've got big things that I want to do. And just having 6 staging tracks doesn't quite work for me. I do, let's see if I've got it here. I don't actually have it. Let's see if I can come here and find it quickly. So the operations scheme, I had Croton Harmon Yard, I had Sleepy Hollow, I had a town, I had the Riverside Transfer Float, I had the main yard, and then I had Manhattanville. Kind of remember these a little bit because the story isn't actually changing. The layout is changing to better tell the story. And that's where I think the big miss is that the story is still the story. And I still want to tell the same story. I just have to modify a couple things. This is interesting. I didn't know this. John Allen pulled out the time saver after a Gorian defeated op session. That's a great idea. I mean, it's 4 feet by 10 inches. So I don't think I need to, I don't think there's any reason I need to do away with it. It just doesn't really fit in with this scheme. So here's an interesting thing, right? First, get a bigger room. Yes, I am N scale. I'm going to stick with N scale. That is still going to be the plan. It works best for the space, and it's got the circus trains that I love. Will I have a spot for the circus trains to unload? Probably not. But this layout will allow me to run the circus train in a way that I can't on what I'm currently building. So in one sense, I'm losing part of something, but in another sense, I'm gaining even more. So I think when I show you the new plan, I think you'll understand why I'm okay giving up the place to unload the circus in favor of what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, and Derek's right, and I wanted to add it because I thought the best way to have a remote operator on the layout was through having a remotely operated time saver puzzle. I'm finding that's not the case, and that's part of why I'm thinking about the shift. So one of the fundamental elements that I discovered through talking to a layout operator that I am very lucky to operate on is that to have a multi-deck layout, you can do it in spirit and not necessarily need physical multi different decks to make it happen. So what I'm actually gonna do is create a 3-deck layout on a single deck in my 8-foot by 9-foot room. That's the plan. That's the thought. If I get rid of what's behind me right now, the thought is a triple deck layout in an 8-foot by 9-foot space. 2 of the decks will be connected. 1 of the decks will be separate. But that works for the story. So let's take a look at a little bit the different areas that, actually, let's do it a little differently. I'll show you, I guess, the layout, the basics of the layout. Then I'll show you the areas that I plan to model and how and why it is going to fit with the multi-deck layout that I am planning, or like how or why I'm planning it. It it's not so much that they're virtual decks. It's let me bring it up and let me show you. Let's get into this. So this is the entire layout stacked on top of each other. The layout, the layout itself is not a helix. It would more be considered a nolix. It goes around the room twice. Once on the lower level, and then once on the upper level. And that's how I'm kind of getting the two decks. And we'll see. We'll see. Yes, it looks crowded. It looks crowded because right now there are two decks on top of each other. Once I space it out, I think you'll understand a little bit more. And yes, the car float is a connection point, but no, the car float is not the way that I'm switching decks. I'm actually switching decks in a completely different way. So there are definitely a couple downsides. As Roger Coleman points out in his super chat, thank you very much, it'll be expensive. The bench work is not going to be simple bench work to make this happen, to make the layouts happen. The other side of it is this is a rented space, so I don't know how long I'm actually going to be in here. So let's get into this. I think people are saying it's crowded because I've got all these operators in here, right? You got to kind of remove the operators and sort of look at the space a little bit more from the point of view of where, like how big the actual aisles are going to be. These circles are all 36-inch circles. So all of my aisles are 36-inch spacing. I didn't say they were virtual. I said they were kind of virtual. So, yeah. I just got what Joe Rader was saying. No, there will never be 8 operators. I just did that kind of as a joke. I just thought it was kind of funny. I think that it'll never be more, I don't think, than 3 operators and myself. The plan is that the dispatcher would be remote. So somebody running a road train could be remote as well, but the dispatcher would be remote, 3 local operators, so that everyone will have plenty of space. It's not really going to be that many people. So let's take everything out of here except for one piece of it, and we'll start kind of looking at it. I'll quickly run through the layout, and by quickly I mean, I'll quickly run through the layout. I'll kind of show you how it works around the room, and then I'll go back and we'll look at each element of the layout, and I will show you the different scenes, the prototypical real life spaces where this will go. And yes, I think this might be Jenny, I think. The plan is, and if you look at the layout as we go around the design, each of the corners are very simple. So the way I want to build this bench work is that each of these elements can be cut in the corners and removed and put in a freestanding room on their own. So this is the start on the lower level. So we are actually -1 below deck level, let's say right now. And this is the staging yard. It's a hidden staging yard. I'm kind of being convinced that maybe I should make this a drawer, but this is hidden staging. There's no like fiddling, there's no 050 with this. This is just train storage. So the tracks are tight together. There's not a lot of space to get your fingers in. If you're gonna switch around any of the cars on this train, what you're gonna need to do is pull them out onto this first leg of the lower main line. And this first leg of the lower main line will be visible. And it is increasing in grade as we leave the staging yard to get up to my 0-inch point. It's not exactly a mushroom. I don't know what it's technically called, to be honest with you. It's a layout inspired by a layout that I operate on. The gentleman that owns the layout refers to his layout as a triple deck layout. I don't know how well that applies here, but anyway, so we come out of staging, single track main line. This layout, all the main lines are going to be single track. Dennis is asking if there's enough room for my fingers in N scale. This staging yard that I am showing right here, right now, has the same spacing as my staging yard that is right here next to me right now. And yes, there is room to get your fingers in, but there's not a lot of room. Not talking about John Parker's. The layout that I'm talking about is a gentleman named Phil Monott. If you go to operatingsessions.com and you look at layouts in New York, you're looking for the Delaware and Susquehanna layout. It is a railroad of lies, but he is focused on operations. His layout is completely operations based. I've had the opportunity to run on his layout a couple times to see how it works, and I like the multi-deck methodology that he is using. So come out of lower staging, single deck, main line right here. This orange block, if anybody's wondering, is a window. I'm trying to keep things simple in front of the window, and you'll see that both on this lower deck and on the upper deck as well. So main line comes here, and then the main line juts into the back here, and the main line is hidden all the way around here until it comes back out at this turnout. And when you get to this turnout, this is where the float terminal is. The float terminal is gonna be on the lower level. It has a similar amount of space as my current car float freight terminal area, but it is a lot more functional. So the train will come out of, behind the, well, I'll show you a little bit later what it's going to come out behind. But so the main line is here in this whatever greenish color. There's a runaround here in blue. There are going to be two runarounds on the layout. So that's how I'll be able to get trains to pass by each other, is through this runaround here or a runaround that I'll show you elsewhere. What I'm doing here that's very different is that the car float is not going to move. It's not going to tilt down. It's going to be a much more fixed setup. The freight terminal here is only going to have 2 tracks, and then this third track here is going to be the team track. I don't really have a team track on my current layout, but I'm learning that for operations, a team track would be a good thing to have. This is N scale. So I do have Z scale. There's a Z scale track up here behind me, but this layout's not going to be Z scale, it's going to be N scale. So the car float has a 2-track car float on the one end, and on the other end it'll have 2 freight terminal tracks, and a team track. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around the loop, and this is the main incline of the layout, and this is what makes the double deck part of it. So going from this green turnout here that I'm highlighting up around this loop and back to the other side puts this track here. Let's see, where is it? Won't let me set it, but it puts this track here at 2.5 inches. So we are now on the quote unquote second deck of the layout, 2.5 inches-ish above this other turnout. And that's how I'm getting the 2 decks. So Derek says, why would you want the main line to be hidden? The reason that I want the main line to be hidden is that on an operating layout, when you can have the entire train disappear and then come out somewhere else, that the now I'm losing the word, the kind of the impression you get, the feeling that you get is that you have traveled a farther distance. So yeah, Dennis, this is kind of like yours as well, how it goes up and over itself. Yep, exactly. I didn't think this was possible to do this sort of style of thing. It doesn't go through the wall into the neighbor's apartment, but you can. The trains run. They make noise, which is partially. Oh, the train's up there. I need to dust the tracks. I'll get those running though. I do need to do that. This has been in my head. There you go. Illusion. That's the word I wanted to say. Having the mainline tracks disappear and come back out give you an illusion of distance. So the another place where the main line is disappearing is this upper track here. This is all going to be blocked as well. So as the train comes up the incline, it will eventually disappear back here and it'll come back out over on this top part. So yes, giving an illusion of distance, gives you scenery breaks as well. It also enables me to have 2 trains running above and below each other and not have them running through the same exact scene, which is something that I kind of didn't want to kind of, it's something I was trying to solve and something I wasn't really sure how to do until I started getting into this one. So this is the main incline right here, and it goes up and it gets to here, and you notice there's a turnout. So what I have up here is 2 things. I think it was Happy Valley Hobbies was asking if I was going to have an ingle nook. Here is your ingle nook. This track here is going to climb up and go over the incline track here. So it's kind of 2 levels, kind of a third-ish level in height or whatnot. But this is going to be an ingle nook switching puzzle at the end of the of this industrial area. Hold that question. That question is going to come back. So let's keep going around, and once we go back, then I'll start showing the photos, and Edward, your question will be answered. So I'm going to take out some of this lower level stuff just to clean things up and make things a little easier to see. So my upper track, my upper main line is going to come across here and I'll show you how this is going to work. This is going to work. Comes out here, and then this comes in front of the lower track, right? If I mention this lower track back here is hidden, and this track here is going to be up on top of it and essentially hiding it so you can't see it. And then they cross here, so the upper track then goes into the back, and the lower track comes in front, and this is, again, where the window is. But I mentioned I'm going to have 2 runarounds. The second runaround is going to be in this industrial level right here. And this is going to be an upper level industrial area that I'll show you. I'll show you. There's a plan. There is a. It's a great question. It's a good question, and when I get, remember that question. Remember that question. We're getting there. We're getting there. I know. I know. This is taking a while to explain. If I didn't keep getting distracted, probably a little faster. So here's an upper level industry. Let me just hide the lower main line so you can kind of see it. There's no switchback, but there's this runaround here, or passing siding here, and then off the passing siding, I got 2 spurs here in the front, but then off the main line, I've got another spur in the back. So yeah, if Joey has anything to do with it, it'll be suspended from balls and yarns and thumbtacks. If anybody is wondering who is responsible for the idea of the pull-out drawer lower staging, it was this guy right here that's saying using balls of yarn and thumbtacks. Yeah, it's not so much hold your questions until later, but definitely come back and make your comments below, because I'm gonna lose track of some of them, and I know some of them are gonna be like very important to think about. So here's the upper level. Upper level comes down here, and I need to move this because that's on the wrong level. So this upper level track now comes into my upper level yard. So this is now where my classification yard's going to be. I've got a short little lead into it. I've got a little engine track here where I can park engines, and I've got these 5 tracks up front here where I can sort cars and whatnot. So that's this yard. Behind it, though, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 staging tracks. So if I just back up a little bit, so these staging tracks you can see are much closer together compared to the classification yard. And that's because the idea being that when you're switching a yard takes pretty much real time to switch it, right? I mean, it's kind of a one-to-one operation. Not the right green, but I did think about creating some merch. I don't know if people get this joke or not, but this is a Cameron thing. This is the wrong green. This is the right green. I've thought about making some merch comparing the 2 greens. If people don't remember, I do have merch. This is actually this is the shirt that inspired this layout, this Riverside transfer. This is what inspired the car float. This is what inspired a lot of that. So that's what a lot of this is based on. So yeah, if you go to merch.humancity.org, you can find the merch. You want royalties on the slide out drawer? We can give you royalties on the slide out drawer. So the section that is the yard and staging, both the upper and lower, is 15 inches wide. It is behind the it's behind the door, which is good because it can act as staging, and I could just pull trains out of it, or you can close the door and actually operate this classification yard. So what I've shown you now is I've got a yard on each end. I've got a yard on each end, and the train goes basically from the upper yard, around down the incline, back across the lower track, and goes back to the lower yard. Goes back to that lower yard. So that's the general idea. Now, I mentioned at one point, that it's kind of a triple deck layout, and I have another deck that's not connected. I felt like I really wanted to get this other element into the layout because this is a New York City based layout. And on a New York City based layout, you need a subway, right? I can't have a New York City based layout without a subway. So what I figured out is that I can do is I can have these two tracks here be visible tracks. So on the track, underneath the incline, underneath the car float and everything, only these two tracks here on this little peninsula will be visible. There'll be subterranean tracks, and the rest of it will all be hidden. So you'll see the subway train here. It'll stop in the station. It'll pull out, it'll disappear, and a little bit later it'll come back out here on the other station. So that's the general part of the layout. So now I'm sure what everybody's asking themselves is, what in the world are you thinking? There is no way in a million years that this has anything prototypical whatsoever. That there is no way a double deck layout based in New York City, like there's no reality to this, right? I mean, I'm saying it, so I'm sure other people are saying it as well. Let's go to Google Earth, because I think this is going to be the thing that is going to tie this all together. Yeah, so Bill, I will be able to get to the subway for derailments. I'll be able to get to a lot of the back tracks. The way I intend to do the bench work is that I will be able to get to things from underneath. Any of the hidden tracks, I'll be able to get underneath. So the entire vertical space of the layout is, I think it's 5 inches, but it might be 6. Let me check. Let me check how many it actually ended up being. So this track here is the highest track, and it's 4.27. And then the lower staging is the lowest track. Oh, okay. Actually, I just realized. So it goes, oh, actually, it's saying this is 0. Is this 0? Oh, that's 0. So the lower staging's at 0. The highest track on the peninsula is at 4.27. But I just realized that the subway at its lowest point is -1. So it goes from -1 to 4.27. So it's 5.25 inches from rail to rail. So you need to add another 2 inches to that for track clearance above. So it's 7.27 inches. So, yeah. Mike, come back and post this down on the bottom, because I am guaranteed you I am not going to find this later. So please come back and add it into the comments. So let's go back to Google Earth. My layout is going to be on Google Earth. It's going to be on Earth, not on Google Earth. The layout's going to be based on Earth. It's going to be based in the New York City area. And if we go here, this right now, this is kind of the entire stretch of my layout. It goes from up here in Croton Harmon Yard, which, if you notice, is back to my old layout, and oh yeah, that's a good idea. You can also join the Discord. There's a link down in the chat as well. The comments below will come on after the stream ends. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way they do it. So yeah, when I end the stream, just hit refresh and you'll be able to then make comments down at the bottom. So Croton Harmon Yard, still the north end. South end here, you probably can't read that, but it does say Highline. So let's take a look and see where we're at. Croton Harmon Yard right now is primarily a Metro North yard. All the freight tracks and everything have been removed, so it's not a yard that actually feeds freight to the city anymore. So this leads me to the Railroad of Lies. This is the part of the lie of my railroad is Croton Harmon Yard wouldn't and doesn't feed the west side of New York City, but in my world it will. So this yard here is essentially what I'm simulating with my upper yard here. So there's some staging tracks, there's a classification yard and whatnot, and that's this area. That's the yard. So, you know, you can see my yard looks nothing like this yard. It's only in spirit. Pretty much everything I'm showing you is only in spirit. So when you leave Croton Yard and head down south, as you reach Upper Manhattan, one of the things that you come to is the George Washington Bridge, and the tracks actually run under the George Washington Bridge between the Hudson River, and there's some really interesting graffiti on the walls down here. There's a little pedestrian bridge covering right here. If we go this way a little bit, you may have heard of the Little Red Lighthouse, which is right here. So this is an area where the tracks kind of duck in, come out of, whatever. You've got, you know, this upper roadway here with the tracks down below it. And I did say that Railroad of Lies, not building the Washington Bridge. I've got enough bridges to build. So there's tracks down on the bottom and there's a road up top. So if we go back to my layout, what I have right here is a track down on the bottom, and then, oh, sorry, actually, I apologize. This is the track on the top. This is the track on the bottom. So this bottom track here is gonna be the actual track, and the upper track is gonna be the track that's up here on the road. So in my Railroad of Lies, I am going to be using roads that are on top of bridges or elevations to help me separate my two levels of track. And if you remember, I talked about how this lower track is going to be visible here, and it'll disappear here, but it's also going to disappear here. So here, when the lower track goes under and disappears, that's when I'm going to kind of use this, bridge kind of whatever look to have it disappear. Hellgate Bridge is completely on the other side of Manhattan. This is not the Hellgate Bridge. So the other tunnel entrance that I'm going to use is the lower track now needs to disappear under something. And what we have here is that we have what's called the entrance to the Freedom Tunnel. This is actually where, if you've ever seen movies like about the mole people or the people that live in the train tunnels, this is where the Amtrak train goes underground in Manhattan. So this is a very, recognizable area in New York City. And this right here, this, as it goes under right here, that's going to be the Freedom Tunnel on my layout. So I'll be building that in here. And that again is how I'm going to get the separation, is because the tracks here that you see are going to be, well, you can't really see it here, but the roadway is actually higher than the track. So it's where it lies, I'm making it up. Why is it called the Freedom Tunnel? Do you know? I think the reason it's called the Freedom Tunnel is because it's where the mole people used to live, aka free of everything. But yeah, exactly. What started as a harmless hobby has turned into this. So that's one thing. So people were talking a little bit about bridges and various things as well. So this is the 138th Street retaining wall. Again, this is where the Amtrak tracks go by. I'm going to see if I go here. Let's see if this looks any better in Google Maps. Sometimes Google Maps definitely makes things look better. Sorry, I'm trying to orient myself, and let's go right here. So looking from here, I'm on the roadway. The tracks are down here on the bottom, and again, I've got this big wall here with a roadway above it. So again, this is giving me a prototypical solution to having one track be above or below the other track. And yes, while you're up here, you can visit Andy, because Andy lives right around the corner. So not yet. We're not there quite yet. So this is just one of sort of the inspirations of how I am solving the problem of having an elevated train kind of thing and using prototypical images. This, the area that I'm talking about right now that we are in, is actually this area right here. So we are on the upper level and the train going on the lower level, which is actually going to be hidden, but this stuff is up and elevated. So I needed an excuse, a way to get, the stuff up here and elevated. And I'm doing that by using some old, long forgotten New York Central rail-served industries that were located along the track. So you can see this building here is rail-served on top of a bridge. 2 tracks, building. 2 tracks, elevated buildings. This is Manhattanville. So on my current layout, Manhattanville is the time saver. On the new layout, this is where Manhattanville is. Manhattanville is actually elevated. It is a very narrow building, you know, right along the edge of the tracks. And it's near, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful bridges in the area. And this bridge underneath is just stunning. And let me actually, let's go, let's take a look at it here. So my idea is, let's see if I can figure out how to actually get under this bridge so I can show it to you. So this is a very interesting bridge. So my plan is the train bridge is actually over here, right? So the train is actually on this bridge. This is one of the buildings that I showed. But what I'm going to do instead, because it's my layout and I want to do it, is I'm actually going to build this bridge. So the bridge that all these tracks here are going to be sitting on, or actually this track, this back track here, that's going to be sitting on, that is going to be sitting on top of this bridge here. These two tracks will be in the front. So I've got prototypical real life examples from New York City showing the multiple levels, and I didn't know this. I did not know that the viaduct at one point had trolley tracks. That is pretty darn cool. I don't know why it was called Manhattanville, but that's what that area is called. There are a huge amount of movies that are filmed under there, and I can show you if I can remember how to find it. If we go up here, there is an alley right here. This alley is in a huge amount of movies because it's a dead-end alley with this gorgeous bridge, and it just looks really incredible. There are movies filmed here all the time, and this is right across from where the train is. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this FW Web Company is the old, let's see if we can see this sign. Is it going to let me see this sign? I believe this is the old New York Central building, or the New York Central Power building. I'm sure Andy will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an old New York Central building at one point. Manhattanville was a separate village like Greenwich Village. It was overtaken by New York City. There you go. Yeah, there you go. New York Central Power building. So, building a layout, planning a layout around a very New York-centric area of the city. So we're going to keep going down. You're asking about the float bridge and how I was going to do the float bridge. This is the float bridge. This is the area that inspired the Riverside transfer. And let me actually go to the Google Maps view because it is a much better view. But you can see here's the 69th Street Transfer Bridge. The Hudson River Greenway, this whole section here, at one point in time, used to be a New York Central yard. And if we rotate around a little bit and we come down here, you can see there is a New York Central switcher, and this is called Locomotive Lawn. This area, at one point, you can see here, there used to be a railroad pier here. There used to be a railroad pier here, a railroad pier here, here, another one up here, and the only ones remaining are the 69th Street Float Bridge up here. So that is going to be this area up here, the float terminal. And somebody was asking earlier, like how am I going to sort of model this, right? Because now I got a float bridge and I got a track in the back of it. I did. I have a walk through New York video where we walked to the New York Central power station, and also another one where we walked down to the float bridge. So yeah, yeah, Steve, it is definitely not very floaty anymore. But yes, so this is, I don't think Google was around when the tracks were there. I believe the tracks were pulled up in the 1970s, 75, somewhere around there. So Google didn't exist. There are pictures. There are absolutely pictures. You can find a lot of information about that area online. You can find track plans. You can find all that kind of stuff there. This is my plan for that area. But we were talking, I have the float bridge and the yard, and then we've got this overhead bridge here. And this overhead bridge goes all in front of where the yard used to be. So you're asking where that upper track is going to go. I'm going to model this bridge because this bridge extends the entire length over this float yard. Now, yes, the bridge did not exist, as far as I understand, the bridge did not exist in any way, shape, or form when the trains were there. So again, railroad of lies, but again, based on some, some realistic, let's see if I can get this to switch. I can come stand over here. So based on some realistic ideas, float bridge, bridge over it, and this, I mean, imagine this city scene right here. This city scene is going to be the city scene that's on the back of the wall here. So car float bridge with the city scene on the back. I am modeling a range of years. I'm essentially modeling anything that I want. I am primarily going to run 40-foot boxcars, which would put me somewhere in the 60s or 70s along with the car float. But that road and the skyscrapers in the back obviously put me in modern times. So I'm going to be very, very flexible, in my years. Andy Accept says all the first row of buildings is built over the old 69th Street yard in the 80s. So I'm not as worried about what year I'm running as I am about having something that'll be interesting to operate. No, not to the 1900s. 1932 to 2000 probably be accurate because I do have a bunch of those 36-foot wood reefers. So yeah, we will a little bit be getting down there. A big reason to run 40-foot boxcars on the layout is it just gives me more switching options. I could run 60-footers, but then all my trains go down to, 5 or 6 cars. Whereas if I'm running 40-footers, I can run 8 40-foot cars on a train, possibly a little bit longer, but that kind of gives me, gives me all that. So I know what everybody's asking right now. Okay, great, you figured out all of this, but this incline. Oh, really? Oh, well, if they lasted into the 60s, that's great. So if people don't know, the story of Human City Junction and the Riverside Transfer is that the New York Central was selling off a bunch of their New York Central 40-foot pacemaker cars. The Human City Junction leasing company bought the New York City pacemaker cars, and they are basically leasing them out to the Riverside Transfer. The Riverside Transfer is the car float operation company that bought the car float off of the New York Central when the New York Central sold it. So my Railroad of Lies, this whole sort of thing is essentially a branch line that used to be New York Central tracks that were sold off to a third-party company that I happen to name after my YouTube channel. So Railroad of Lies, based sort of on reality. But I get it. I get it. Manhattan's fairly flat, right? So like, I'm not gonna find in New York City any area where there's an incline where the train goes from street level essentially to up on, bridge level, on upper level. Okay, that's not true at all. There is absolutely an area that I walked to in one of my videos that I showed you guys, that you guys saw. We head downtown a little bit. This area has been completely modernized right now with Hudson Yards. This is the Long Island Railroad West Side Yard. And if you look right here, you will see a section, what looks like road. It actually used to be the railroad. This used to be how trains actually, so this track was actually moved south a block when they built the Javits Center, but essentially, this is where New York Central trains used to come down the west side, go up this incline to the High Line. So, Happy Valley Hobbies, we're getting there. And I'm hoping Andy Estep is not going to tell me that I'm completely wrong. But I'm 99% sure that this is absolutely a part of the High Line. I'm 99% sure that this is how the trains got up onto the High Line. So this curve here, this incline, there we go. It is so good having somebody that actually has a clue on my streams. So this incline right here is going to be the incline that goes here around it. Yes, I know it goes around the car float. It's not going to go around a yard. I get it. It's different. But this gives me a place to have my city scene. We were talking about the circus earlier. Containerman 68 brought up the circus. This area here is where the circus would come to town and set up. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to use this, but the idea being is that the prototype that it is coming from is this right here with the incline going around the tracks. So Joey says, I like how you're taking reality and bending it to fit your vision. This all makes sense now. I was sharing this on Discord over the last couple weeks, and people were making comments. We were editing some things. I didn't share this part of it with them, though. So I think this is helping to tie all of this together. So here we are again. We go up onto the High Line. Bridges, right? We still need bridges, because one of the things that I have, if we go to the layout here, is I've got this area right here where, again, tracks are going over other things. Yeah, it is tight. I don't know how tight it is. That would be interesting to trace that out. and figure it out. I mean, I'm not sure when the High Line was built. I'd have to look that up. But I'm going to guess the trains that they were running were not very long at the time. But yeah, so here's another area where I need a bridge going to an elevated section of track, a higher section of track. So here we go. This is where the track comes up. So just zoom out a little bit. So here's that curve that we talk about here. It comes up, it goes over this street right here. It's part of the High Line, and this is the bridge I want to show you is, let's go here. So here's the bridge over the tracks. So that is going to be this intersection essentially right here. This track then, as I mentioned earlier, is going to disappear behind some sort of scenic element, so that again gives that sense of distance being traveled. So I only really have to worry about this crossing right here. So this is the model, the idea, the concept for that. And this brings us to, of course, the High Line, because that is what, wow, I didn't realize that. Did in the 50s, huh? They used a turntable. Yeah, I don't know I'm not so sure. I don't know. Well, the High Line absolutely was elevated in New York City. If this ever actually loads, I would be able to show you the High Line. I don't know why this isn't loading. But these buildings along here were, wait, that's not it. Where is it? High Line track. Oh, here it is. Sorry, couldn't find it. Right here. Here's the High Line coming down. So we're already up on the High Line on that industrial track. And here you can see where the building was cut out. This is where the trains you should actually pull into this building. So the section of my layout that is going to be the High Line is going to be this, essentially this end little section right here. Don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Don't know exactly how the buildings are going to be. But the idea is that this little Inglenook puzzle is going to be representative of the High Line. It gives me a reason to put it up on, up on some elevation, on some, up on some addition, give it some height. That's what I'm trying to say. Give it some height. The last thing that's on here that I haven't discussed yet is the subway. And Andy Estep's going to get a little bit excited about this one, because this is right up his alley, right in his area. But we have to go back uptown a ways to get to the subway, because the subway is going to have to come, in and out a little bit to be visible and then not visible. This is a pretty interesting area. Andy actually, I think, has a video, if I'm not mistaken, of this area where he took a picture of the vintage trains coming out through this tunnel area right here. But essentially, trains come out of this tunnel, and if I can figure out how to turn it around, I will turn it around. There we go. Oh, went too far. There we go. So trains come out of this tunnel, and they go to a, I think it's right here. Yeah, they go to a station. right here. So I don't know if I'm going to do elevated subway or if I'm going to do underground subway, but this, this area here where the subway comes out just gives me a prototypical element that I could use to show the subway, which will only be visible, out here on these ends, but it'll give me a way to show these two elements and have a station at the end. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's kind of what all of this is. It's an interesting little journey. Takes us from up here, Croton Harmon Yard, not quite upstate New York, but north of Manhattan, head down the railroad to upper Manhattan along the tracks that are still used by Amtrak, go down a little bit further to where the Amtrak trains go underground, using this as an entrance on my layout to hide things, to reveal different things. And then we've just got some design ideas for my first industrial area where the trains run next to these retaining walls and show up at some rail-served buildings up in Manhattanville. This one up here will, model this bridge that, as people have pointed out, they've seen the movies, so people will recognize it. People will notice it. It is something very recognizable that people that do come over and operate or see in pictures will recognize pretty readily. Then we leave the Manhattanville area, head all the way down to the float bridge area, which this is definitely going to be a highlight of the layout, with the track up on the roadway behind this entire transfer yard and freight yard, giving homage to when New York Central actually had their freight yard here in New York City, with Locomotive Park in front of the switcher, reminding us of those other days. If this loads, there we go, showing the switcher, showing the roadway up above it. Heading down to Hudson Yard for our incline. The incline, it goes around the Long Island Railroad West Side Yard, which I am not going to have, but I am going to have the incline going up and over, using the crossing on 30th Street, right here where the High Line goes over 30th Street, heads downtown, and I will have some nice elevated rail-served buildings on the layout. I do have a Patreon page, Edward. If you go to Patreon and/or Patron, patron.humancity.org, you can also join as a member here. So if you have not answered the poll yet, I'm going to leave the poll up for a little bit longer. I'm going to run the thank you, because it really is the community that has gotten me to the point to even be able to consider something like this. I didn't even conceive the idea of not having a layout that was just a loop. And I've had a lot of false starts. This layout that's behind me has the elements that are in this new design, but it's not this new design. It's a lot less track. It's a lot less prototypical of existing New York locations. So do I keep what I have, or do I change and do I go to something different? Sorry, before I get into that, I do need to play the thank you video because, as I was saying, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't the support of the people that support the channel, not just financially, but also with ideas, which is why I am hoping that when I end the stream, people will make comments down below. All right, let me play the thank you. I'm going to go through, I'll answer some questions. So if you haven't answered the poll yet, you can answer the poll. I will be back. I'll answer questions, start putting questions in the chat, and I will address them when I come back.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Yes, Rusty, and I apologize, but seeing other people's layouts, operating on other people's layouts, it does make you reevaluate. And I didn't think there was any way I could get that kind of layout in this space. I do need to go through and tweak that layout. There are a couple areas where I'll need to pull tracks in a little bit away from the walls, maybe shorten up a couple of things in the corners just so that, give myself a little bit of space. But I think it's a feasible layout. It looks crowded, but I don't think it's overly crowded. But it is a complete mind shift, Dennis at Otter Creek says, is anything glued and screwed? All of my track is pinned in. Nothing is glued down. So every piece of track on the layout that currently exists, I would be able to reuse. The only thing I wouldn't be able to reuse on the layout that currently exists right now would be things like the fascia and the actual shelves themselves. And that's just because I would need to do something completely different with the bench work to, get it all to fit the way I want it to fit. So no, like nothing's glued down. It can all come apart and whatnot. Yeah, so I don't know how well thought out it is, but it fits in my mind. I have somehow dragged all the pieces and parts together, kicking and screaming, and may possibly have come up with some interesting things. Bill from Ozark Midland says, Heath, I believe you should do what it is you truly want, what'll be most satisfying to you. And it is interesting as well. One of the things that I do really enjoy about this hobby is actually the construction process of it. I do love operating, but I'm never going to have the operating layout like some of the ones that I've had the opportunity to operate on. So a lot of this hobby for me is all about building the layout, exploring, trying things. So I have a really fun time just going through these thought experiments. And you know, everything that's here, like it was done in AnyRail. I mean, yes, it took me time. Took me a lot of time. I had to figure a lot of things out. I had to rethink things. This is actually pretty pared down from where it was at certain times. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious how you did this. I used AnyRail to preview operations on my layout plan. If you can message me more about that, I'm kind of curious how that went. But Roy Eltham says I'm probably going to change my layout plan a bit because of this too. Yeah, and that's part of why I'm talking through this with everybody is I think it's interesting. Maybe you'll get something interesting out of it. Maybe not. We'll see. So yeah. Rusty says I started reevaluating right after Greeley. I know, right? John Parker's layout gave me some ideas. I highly recommend AnyRail. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just what I happen to use. I think it's still like $60, and it's great. You know, throw things out there over and over and over again. The version you're looking at right now is version 71. So, you know, it's like just keep changing things and just keep messing with it. Andy, I don't think the angle nook will be removable, but I am starting to think that the time saver does need to be saved. So I will likely have a switching puzzle, but it'll likely be the time saver and not the other things. Wigwag says, so where's the helix going in? You can kind of say this is a little bit of a nolix design, not a helix design. But yeah, it does. Yeah, I know. It's hard for me to know, am I convincing myself to do this, or is it really something I should do? And Corey, this is a bit where I'm at as well. I am currently reading the OpSig Compendium. Fantastic book on operations. Highly recommend it. That has definitely given me some ideas. I do have Lance Minheim's books. His books on building a switching puzzle, building a shelf layout, operating a shelf layout, and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how much time I want to wait. I think there was a question a little bit earlier where somebody asked me, when do I plan on starting this? I'd like to start this sooner than later if I'm going to actually do it, which, you know, one of the first things I might do, though, is, you know, Lance Minheim does professional layout design. Byron Henderson does. Peter Lloyd Lee. Bill. I apologize, Bill. I forget Bill's last name. Bill, the track planner. There's a couple people out there that do professional layout design, and I kind of want to get it to the point where I've developed it as far as I'm ever going to get and then turn it over to a professional. Yeah, it's something like that. Bill Bernacki, something like that. But I do want to turn it over to somebody else. I think that there are going to be certain little details that they'll be able to add to it that'll improve the operations immensely that I would never come up with on my own. So that's why I'm doing as much as I feel comfortable with, but the amount of money that I'm going to spend to rebuild it, I'd like to pay somebody some money to take a look at it. Similar thing probably with the bench work. I'm likely gonna work with somebody to help design the bench work so that it is sturdy enough so that I have a pull-out drawer for lower staging, so that the design elements that I want to include in it won't be blocked by, anything and different different things as well. But yeah, Junction Senior, if this stops moving, apologize, it's jumping around. Junction Senior says, I'm starting a new layout. Are you still designing your layout? Are you building your layout? What stage are you at? Eddie Pappert says, will there be a water feature around the car float? Yes. The theory, the idea is that that I am going to kind of insert probably something. I know it's going to cover up the car float, but something in here is going to be a kind of something like this. Maybe is going to be water, or something like that. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, the plan is that there'll be some water here. Yeah, I could build it in JMRI Ops. That is true as well. Ice Dragon says, worth it for sure. Boxcar the Husky, as an S-scaler, I say finish the current one. Hard projects are some of the most satisfying to complete. I've thought about it. I'm just afraid that I'm having a hard time working on it is part of my thing. Okay, so electrical switching, great question. Thank you. So if you look at certain areas of the track, for example, let's use this area over here as an example. All of the switches that are on the upper deck are not over the track on the lower deck. So that gives me the space there so that I could, Peter Lloyd Lee, Container Man is who you're thinking of. So none of them are there. This turnout here is on the lower level, so no issue there. All of these are on the lower level, so no issue there. And again, as we get over here and we start looking at where these are placed, none of them are placed over any other tracks. I do think, though, that these two turnouts and all of the turnouts in the upper yard will likely be hand thrown. This yard will be operated hand thrown, so it doesn't need to have electrical switches. I might want to put electrical turnout motors, slow motion turnout motors on the staging tracks. The lower staging tracks will absolutely have slow motion switch machines, but the upper level will probably just be throws and stuff like that. Yes, there is a learning curve for AnyRail. If people have questions about AnyRail, join the Discord. I'm happy to help. Happy to help. John Train BFGR, interesting useless fact from a documentary. The last train on the High Line was 1981 and was a load of frozen turkeys. Robert Darby says, start now, commit. Yes, Jason the Train Freak also does track planning as well. There it is. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it. The people that I hesitate to say this because I know the second I say this, things are going to change. But the top three that I'm probably thinking about would be Peter Lloyd Lee. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he does his designs. And I know that because of his YouTube videos. The other person that I'm considering would be Byron Henderson. I've had him on the show. I've interviewed him on this show. Byron Henderson is the one that wrote the chapter in the OpSig compendium about how to design a layout for operations. So he is high on the list, and I know him. So, you know, I very particularly want it built for operations, so he's considering. And then, of course, you know, Lance Minheim does layout design and has done a lot of work on shelf-style layouts. So he's up there as well. I don't know the pricing of any of these guys, so, you know, I'm not sure. Dennis, whose 7 steps did you follow? Oh, Bill. Bill's 7 steps. Yes. Because of your episode with Byron Henderson, the second section around the layout, I am going with less. Yes. Yeah, a big thing that I've been doing is, you know, cutting down. That's another thing. This yard is pretty tight for a operation switching yard. It's great. It stores the amount of cars I need it to store, but it's a little hard. John 2618, do what makes you happy. Don't force continuing a build that isn't satisfying you. Fun part about the hobby is you could always build something new. Yeah. Bill says, no overanalyzing, no long-term procrastination. Just do it. You've done an amazing amount of research on this proposed project. Having a professional layout designer could be a good idea. Yeah, I am... the track alone, the bench work alone, it will be a hefty amount of money. And having somebody that has the level of experience of, you know, Peter Lloyd Lee, Byron Henderson, Lance Minheim, I'm happy with where I got it, but, you know. Chris Bell's in the planning stages. Iowa interurban short line, Des Moines Central, Iowa. Sorry, no floats here. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, Mike, exactly. More eyes are good. And you know, I've shared it on the Discord, and I've gotten a lot of great suggestions. Yeah. Postmodern Model Works. This is kind of surprising. I always got the impression that you were or are a minimalist. I would have imagined a more simplistic layout. So big picture, let's, I mean, big picture, the elements of the layout are a staging yard on each end. I've got 2 small industries with 3 tracks each. I've got a car float with a small little, you know, freight yard and stuff. And 2 passing sidings. That's essentially what the layout is. Yeah. It's not minimalistic. It is kind of crowded for the space. But yeah, a lot of this design is to tell the story. And in my opinion, the opinion of Byron Henderson, of Bill Bernanke, of Peter Lloyd Lee, of Lance Minheim, all these guys are start with the story. So I'm not coming up with anything new when I say that. You know, I didn't invent any of this. If you're stealing it from me, it's been stolen twice. But yeah, start with the story. I think it's good. Yeah, Tex, I learned an immense amount from Peter Lloyd Lee and watching his layout videos. And just real quick, a couple examples of things that I learned from Peter Lloyd Lee are things like, so the tracks along the window here are like straight, right? But these tracks here, they're not straight, right? So the face of the bench work is not square. It's not a, it's not a rectangle. The car float, again, these tracks, they are not parallel. So this back track, or this upper track, is parallel to the back wall, but the whole car float area, the whole main line right there, are not parallel to the edge of the benchwork. And the team track is not parallel to the other freight tracks. And the car float is not, parallel to anything else. And I thought that was a great lesson. A great lesson in layout design is don't have anything along the edge of your layout be square to like your back wall and to other things. It just gives it to me, it just gives it a more, for me, it's more interesting. For me, it's more interesting. Yeah, I wish I had text. I wish I had that kind of space. So real quick, reiterate my story. What is your story, Heath? Remember, is there for you? Yeah. I think you heard my story, Chris, right? I've told you the story. Yeah, container, your Discord's all screwed up. Get it fixed up. MR benchwork. That is one of the places very high on my list of consideration to build my benchwork. The thought is get a lot of the benchwork laser cut or cut by a professional, and then I would just put it together here. Definitely a thought on it. Yeah, Bill's 7 steps are great. Definitely. Any chance of moving the yard to your right to behind the door with only a little work? I'm not sure what you're saying. The yard is behind the door. So the door, when it opens, comes to right here, and it completely blocks the yard. I'm not sure what you're saying. I don't know what you're doing. Dennis says, I looked into having Peter do a design to me, but there's a year or more wait. There you go. So that's it, right? There's the financial aspect to it. Somebody like Peter Lloyd Lee or Byron or Lance are extremely busy. So how long would I have to wait for them? And yeah. Trayman 1, I think I kind of, yeah, I guess I should reach out now, right? Even though I'm not ready to have them do it now, I should reach out. But yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to say what his prices are. I did know what his prices were about 2 years ago or whatever. And to me, it's extremely reasonable. Peter talks all the time about, designing your bench work around where your slow motion switch machines have to go. And like, I wouldn't necessarily think of that, but he said it, and I luckily remembered it, and it was something that I thought about while I was, while I was doing it. So, yeah, there's just, I'm going to spend how much on the layout, realistically, right? To build the layout, $10,000, $15,000 probably. Track is probably going to be $2,000 plus. To pay somebody a couple $1,000s to make sure the design is going to be something that's going to work. Yeah, I get it. It's a lot of money. A couple thousand in locomotives would be, would be great. but I don't want to build, I don't want to just build an around the room layout where everything is lined up and things are, you know, like I want something different. I want something that is beholden to this prototype that I'm kind of following, and being able to weave in and out of that. So yeah, I think it's yeah. Let's see. Do the car? Yeah, Chris, the car cards definitely. When I got into the car cards and really got into how to set them up, yeah, it really did. It really did change a lot for me. It changed a lot. I don't know Sievers. Will you send me a link on that, Roger, in Discord or something, or email? Make the island a Sodar. Yeah. I think if ugh, I think you think benchwork will be more of a cabinet on wheels with a hinge layout on top. Gives you, yeah, mine will definitely not be a hinged layout on top of benchwork. Definitely not. Yeah, not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean container. I mean, take. I mean, if you want to, here's file, info, list of materials. Take. Let's see. Yeah. So here's the list of materials. 66 pieces of code 55 track. Geez, you can make me add this up. There's like 50 turnouts. 40 turnouts. Like do the math on the track. The tracks. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. I wish this was cheaper. I wish it was cheaper. Yeah, right. $2,000 alone on benchwork. I want to make sure my layout's designed properly before I drop $2,000 on my benchwork. And James, I know you're a carpenter. Like I've seen some of your carpentry work. So if yours is going to cost you that, remember Lance Minheim and Byron's other mantra: the time investment to get the build to a running stage. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Andy, you missed it. It'll be on YouTube eventually, maybe. Oh, you got a card that's worth 10,000. You're not getting rid of it to fund my layout. No, you just gotta save. You just gotta keep saving. Yeah, I'm talking, you know, 1/2 inch 7-ply plywood, or even going down to that 1/8 inch birch with, you know, nice rails and stuff on it. It's, you know, it's not going to be very straightforward with the way I have all the inclines and stuff. It's not going to be just a straightforward benchwork. I mean, yes, the staging yards completely flat, both the upper and lower, completely flat. The industrial areas, the float area, completely flat. But almost everything else is on an incline. You've got to make sure, so whenever you do an incline, and this is something that like any rail doesn't do well. Any rail will do easements into your radius curves, right? You can, it's got an easement tool. It doesn't have an easement tool for a slope. So if you want to have, let's say, a 2% slope, you can't just have a flat section that's connected directly to a 2% slope. That doesn't work. Cars will come uncoupled. It'll be a mess. So you need to build that slope into it to get that incline. So yeah, you know, yeah, exactly, John. It's not a cheap hobby. It's something that I realized I'm very passionate about. It's giving me a creative outlet that I haven't had in a long time, and it's really invigorated my creativity. So it's called a grade. Yeah, you know, sometimes sometimes the words just. So I know there is smooth slope. I didn't realize that that did an easement-ish of the slope. I'll look more into that. I'll check that out. But yeah, this has been a huge outlet of sanity for me. And the way I am planning on building this with the bench work, I could just pick this up and take it, you know, take it with me, put it in any room bigger than 9 foot by 8 foot, essentially, level it, obviously, and have an operating layout. And if I do decide I ever want to extend it, I mean, you know, I could extend it off the other side of the staging tracks, and my staging and everything got, you know, can be a through track. 100%, Ralph. 100%. And I really got back into this over the showstopper. So while yes, I got to meet and transact with a lot of people, it wasn't until recently that I really got to get out and see other people's layouts in person and actually run a train on other people's layouts in person. And it really changes your mind. Andy Dorsch says, circular saw, Craig jig, cordless screwdriver, some glue, let's do this. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to get back up. I missed a couple. Lynn says, I was tipped off last year. Track and turnouts were going to almost double in price. Yeah. I mean, I designed everything in Pico Code 55. I really like the Code 55 from Pico because it is actually the height of Code 80 track that is embedded into the ties. So it means you get a stiffer, more durable rail than you do with some of the other Code 55. So I really like their Code 55 stuff. They've got a decent selection of Unifrog turnouts, which I really like. So yeah. Yeah, I you know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. N-track modules. I have some N-track modules. I don't plan on getting rid of them. I plan on using them as scenery dioramas to try out various techniques so that I'll still have some N-track modules in my collection. But the kind of operations and what, yeah. Now, I got to look this up. I hope somebody sent me this link, or I'm going to have to try and remember this, Sievers. I don't know who they are. I got to figure that. I got to figure that out. Yeah, a vertical easement. There you go. So it's not going to technically be modules, but it will be in sections. Again, we can kind of just look at the way I've designed this. If you notice in this corner, you know, right here, the track gets very simple in this corner, so it would be easy to split in the corner there. This corner again right here, you can see very simple trackage right here, so I could split it right there as well. And this is the only corner that is a little bit more complicated, but you know, again, you know, there's no, there will be a way to separate it as well. Use a composite shim to start or end your grade. Oh, that's interesting. There you go. Yeah, and that's the other thing is, you know, I want to, yeah. If I keep saying if I'm going to tear it out, it's likely going to get torn out. Not right away. Not right away. I'm still gonna do some stuff on it. I still want to do more operations on it just to learn more about that process. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure that I'm gonna do it right. And I'm looking at the room, and there is actually right here. Right here in this bottom corner with these two track ends, there's actually an outlet right there that may or may not be in the way. I'm gonna have to also do some more measuring and stuff. Yeah, I've tried a little bit of everything. I mean, you guys, if you followed my channel, I mean, you can see the T-track that I started with. You see the LGB on the floor, the O scale on the floor. You know, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, aluminum's very expensive, but I will likely have some metal in my benchwork design to keep things narrower. Yeah, exactly. It will go. Yeah, and then extend it into a giant sprawl. It'll go in a bigger room at some point. Then it says, I was terrified my layout wasn't going to work and everyone was going to laugh at my failure. The good thing is you're doing it all on YouTube, so everybody is laughing at you. Just sometimes we're laughing with you, I guess, right? I mean, it's... I guess part of why I'm putting this up there, or up here, is that for me, and I think for a lot of others, model railroading is a process, and I am very interested in the process of it. The process of it brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction. And, you know, I mentioned a lot of the inspiration of this double deck-ish design came from Phil Monat, and I am very fortunate, you know, his layout is fairly close to me. I can go operate on his layout. I can go operate on the New York and Atlantic layout. And while I am rebuilding things, I still have the opportunity to get out there and operate and run trains, but then I can come to my layout and build something. And the other thing I'm excited about doing, and I'm sort of seeing Ralph's, comment again, is the other reason I want to build a layout of my own is that I want to build something that other people can kind of come and see my world and see my vision and run trains on what I've created, and hopefully share what I'm able to build with somebody that at the time they come over might not have a layout, or might just have a very different layout, or or whatever. So it's yeah, Chris, being on another layout definitely stirs the juices. That's for sure. Absolutely. Dennis knows we all think what he is doing. Check out other people's channels. If you want inspiration, check out other people's channels. See what they're doing, even if it's not your scale, if it's not your prototype, if it's not, check out other people's channels. You never know where that inspiration is going to come to. Yeah, I won't do, I'm not going to do foam on the layout. I will probably do cork. Probably won't. Yeah, no, I get that what you're talking about with the Sievers is pre-made. I just haven't found that link yet. Definitely going to practice more operations. There's a friend of mine that's working on an operations software program, and I'm really hoping that he is going to get a little bit further with that so that I can test that on my layout. So I will definitely still be testing and going. So yeah, we mentioned this earlier. Nothing is glued down. All of the track is just pinned in place. So you know, everything can pretty much be reused. Obviously, feeders are soldered on. There are some, you know, various things, but yeah, exactly. Um, sorry, exactly. What I'm saying is that, you know, all the turnouts, all the track that I have here can be reused, as well as I will need additional stuff as well. Yeah, and I get they can be expensive, but again, you know, as a layout that I'm gonna likely at some point have to break down at least somewhat, going with something that is built like the Seaver system, I think would help. Yeah, 10 by 10, so it's a little bigger than what I got. I got 9 by 8. My division of the NMRA has a large selection of, wow, that's a great idea. I don't know, I'm 99% sure my division doesn't, but there are people in the division that might. I don't know that my division does. My only fear is N scale handmade turnouts. Yeah, all about the process. Yeah, Dennis. I mean, that, you know, you're hearing that here a lot as well from people. You know, it's overly complicated. Blah 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 blah. I know, right? I know, Derek. Right? It was all about just displaying a collection. To now, I'm like comparing things to the prototype. Very, very different mindset. I'm actually looking. Right. So. This is all my circus N scale stuff. That's not going anywhere. This is the N scale stuff specifically like for operations and stuff like that. But when you get up there, there's a section of stuff of Lionel that I bought at one point because I was like, oh, Lionel's fun. Let's, you know, get some Lionel. I need to sell that stuff. I don't know how I'm going to sell it, but I'm going to keep. I love the circus trains. I'm going to keep everything circus. I'm not getting rid of the circus stuff. I know, I'm like collecting dust with the collection. But things that I'm never going to run, like those Lionel things. I hope there are no O-scale people here getting offended. But like I should sell them off. They were kind of impulse buys. A little. The process stresses me out. Yeah, it can be that way. Although, you know, RDA N scale says to me, it's, you know, building its own reward. I've not switched to S scale. Oh, it's funny. One of the projects that I have to get to at some point. Yes, this is old school S scale track. I need to put this in something, clean this stuff up real good. But I've got an S scale train that I've never run, so I do have to clean this up. Yeah, I just don't have the space. I don't have the space for foam. I just don't. Yes, Joey. One of our friends is doing one. Yeah, Bill says he likes the process as well. So Bill's an O-scaler, but you go to Bill's channel, he's got some cool techniques for the one I mean, he's got a couple videos, but the one I'm specifically thinking about, he did like a Bill knows what I'm talking about. It's a thingamajiggy that goes on the side that's like a mountain, and he put greenery and stuff on it. And it just looks fantastic, and he's O-scale, so it's like what would an N scaler learn from an O scaler? But it was really good. Yeah, Dennis, if I was an HO scale, I definitely think that's S gauge, not S scale. Yeah, yes, it is S gauge track. That is true. But I'm having fun. I'm having fun with the process, and I'm glad I was able to share a little bit of it with you. I hope I hope it was somewhat interesting. The poll is basically ended pretty much exactly where it started, with 65, 35, 65 saying to start over, 35% saying finish the current one. So it's not overwhelming, I guess, but it is leaning in the same direction, that I'm leaning in on these various things. So please, if you're still here and you have some thoughts, when the stream ends, just hit refresh, leave the comment below. It'll just help me be able to find stuff. Help me. From the city that never sleeps, farewell, model citizens.
It's all about humanity.